we're getting ready to transition into our panel discussion. A lot of our panelists have just entered the room. And so if our panelists could take their videos off at the moment. I think we're waiting on one more person to join us. Hey, Cheryl, are you there?
I'm here, Stephanie, or sorry, Michelle, can you hear me? I can put my video up.
Okay, awesome. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so again, thank you everyone for joining us this morning as we continue just to this conversation about global education in this digital age, especially in a time like now with COVID. I know things have changed a lot for a lot of institutions around the country and locally within our own communities. And so I thought that it would be a great fit to have everyone, some of our community partners on this panel discussion about affordable international education. And so I wanted to take a moment, first and foremost, if we can just go around just kind of introducing yourself and your role that you're with and the school or university that you're with at the current moment. So I'll start with Dr. Gingler.
Hi, nice to see you all. I'm Dean of the Maryland Davies College of Business at the University of Houston downtown. But I've worked on several international partnerships, traveled through China, visiting schools, spoken at their national conference on education. I have taught in Singapore and taught in Taipei and spent 2 years working in the United Arab Emirates teaching at a university there. So I've got a pretty good grasp on a lot of different cultures and things around the world. I've also traveled quite in Taipei and made several different arrangements with universities in Taiwan too. So I'm sure we'll hear more from that from our colleague from St. Thomas. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So I'm just kind of following the row, Dr. Ye.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yao-Yun Ye. I'm currently serving as a department chair for international study and modern languages at the Center for International Study here at University of St. Thomas. And speaking of international experiences, I think I myself is an example of international education because I actually grew up in Taiwan. So Dr. Gengler speaks just perfectly about my background. And I have exposed to a diverse different cultures given the background that I have, and of course we're trying our best at our university to see how we can promote this type of international experience to a student, and I look forward to more discussion on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Peters?
Yes, I'm Cheryl Peters, and I am Executive Director of the Honors College at Houston Community College. And most people, I think, who have the opportunity to do traveling abroad will do that in a junior or senior year as they transition onto a baccalaureate institution. But we've been from the beginning of the creation of our Honors College, we were very committed to giving our students the opportunity for travel, for international travel. We've paid for their for those, eligible to go, meaning those who can get a passport, whether it's a US passport or a passport from another country if they're an international student. But we have paid for them to travel with us. We typically travel at the spring break time of a trip of 9 or 10 days and somewhere between 15 and 20 students. They're very, very prepared to travel. And so when they get there, they've already have 3 courses that have prepared them to move into that experience. And so we've been able to give students who might not ever have the chance or have maybe never traveled anywhere. We've had students who've never been to an airport. So when you're talking about, you know, access and equity issues, we've really offered so many students over the last 14 years that we've been doing this, the opportunity of a lifetime for them. And so we're very proud of our program. I'm also so happy to see our partners at the four-year schools, because we've sent many of our students to St. Thomas, and we're sending more and more to UHD. And so we're proud of what Houston Community College is doing to offer students this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peters. And Dr. Kelly.
Hi, thank you, Felicia, for convening this and giving us a chance to talk about the importance of global education. My name is Stephanie Kelly, and a small disclaimer, I am here representing Lone Star. The Associate Vice Chancellor, Dr. Katie Caruso, asked me to step in because she couldn't be here today. But actually, my role is Executive Director of Community Colleges for International Development, or CCID, and Lone Star is the host college. And Dr. Stephen Head, our Chancellor, is a huge supporter of international education. And I come out of the Honors in International Education Department at Lone Star. So I was faculty there. Then I was the director of the Honors College. And Lone Star's comprehensive internationalization of the campuses really speaks to what, like our colleagues at HCC, what community colleges can do for their students during their first 2 years. And I'm excited to talk about later some of those opportunities, because one of my most cherished memories of my time as faculty and director at the Honors College was really seeing the opportunities that we gave students that I know in some cases they would not have received at a four-year school. No offense to our partners here at the four-year school, but we're really excited what community colleges are doing and the opportunities we're able to give them in terms of global learning.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to jump into some of the questions that were pre-submitted to us. And so just feel free to take the floor whenever you hear something. So I wanted to just start off with a brief, I know everyone kind of introduced themselves and some highlighted a little bit about their department and organization. So if you could all just provide a little bit more in-depth overview of your role, whether you're, and how you provide like study abroad opportunities or international experience for your students, and any type of assistance that you have for specific students. And do you see that role changing with us being in, with the pandemic and having COVID-19? How are those things changing?
Well,
If I may, well, I don't know who's want to begin first.
Dr.
Sure.
oh, okay, I'll just go ahead and start by saying the first biggest impact to us this year was we were going to take students to Florence, Italy in like March 10th through 20th, and we had our trip canceled and our students were heartbroken to the extreme. I think one of the things we're proud of is that we have decided to fully fund or scholarship our students, so that the only thing they have to take is they do have to provide their own passport and visa if they need if they're an international student that needs yet another visa to go to another part of the world. But aside from their spending money, you know, we fully fund everything. And we've always tried to do this travel on a shoestring. I want to say, give a rough figure of around $2,400 a person per traveler, where and so that makes us live as travelers. We're tourists and travelers, but we are not there to have a vacation or to lay back and lounge around like many American students. You know, we let them know you've got to live like a native, you have to eat like a native, you have to walk and do trains like a native, and especially do a lot of walking. And so I think that that's has really given students a taste of what it's like to be in another culture, to really experience the way the citizens of that particular city. And so I don't want to take up too much of the time, except to say that that has been a hallmark of our program, and also a big recruiting thing, that students who stay and they travel their very last semester. So they're already very invested and very prepared to travel. But that's certainly a great recruiting tool for us when we bring students into our honors college.
Thank you. Dr. Irex?
Yeah, sure. So this year has been a wonderful, weird years for all of us because we have university currently has frozen all the study abroad program because the nature of the coronavirus. But certainly we don't want this kind of international exchange to be broken just because of the pandemic. I mean, we are still running a couple of exchange programs with countries like Japan, France, and I think Argentina, if I remember right. So we'll try our best to, to serve the interests of the student because our own program is an international program where we do require all the students, all our majors to actually go study abroad, whether it's a semester study abroad or whether it's a one course, one shot, 2 weeks study abroad. You gotta go out of your hometown. You gotta go see the world. I mean, learning it from the books is one way, but that's the minimalist view of what you can get. I mean, even just immerse yourself in a different country, in a different culture for just a week, it will broaden your mind, right? So, I mean, like I said, this is a very interesting year where it's just difficult for all of us to advance our goals on international education, but we're certainly trying our best. And we have, our center also hosts the study abroad program, and we're trying our best to predict what can we do, what more we can do in the following semester. But by far, I think it's just there are too many different parameters that we can really predict at this moment. But however, I certainly believe that speaking from an international study department, we will believe that if a student in his whole college time haven't really been traveling abroad, haven't really been participating in any study abroad, you will see the student outcome, the student perspective on international relations, on international work will be certainly different. And it doesn't really matter which country he goes. All right. Thank you.
And, yeah, we of course have the same problems of everyone else. Nobody can go anywhere. And, we require an international experience for our international business majors. And we fund some of the students and some of them fund themselves. But it's a great experience, but it's a struggle right now. And we try and put together different other experiences that we can to try and replace it. I mean, one of the things I'd like to draw on is just we have a tremendous international community right here in Houston with branch offices of international companies here. And, we bring in speakers from some of these organizations. The Asian Chamber of Commerce, for instance, is a great place to interact with people from mainland China and other places. So we have a lot of opportunities to at least hear about international experiences, and it's better than just saying we can't do anything. I'm happy to see Cheryl here. I've met Cheryl before, and HCC is a great partner for us. And I really like recruiting students for international programs from other countries to come because they can go to HCC and get a good start and use their international, their foreign language programs to learn English, or English as a second language program. Sorry, I'm stuttering there. And but they have got a tremendous program there, and especially they have an extremely large program of students from Vietnam, and that fits into our local community very well. I'm sure Stephanie has a lot of things like that at Lone Star too, but I'm sorry I don't know them, Stephanie. But I think one of the biggest things that we need to recognize for when we talk about cultural competence of going abroad. And it brought out to me when Cheryl was speaking of, we want people to go out and eat like the locals and things like, you know, every place is different though. And so it depends on where we're going. If we go to India, don't tell your students to go out and eat like the locals, because then you have to spend the next 3 or 4 days locked in the hotel room. But it's just like, I came from a background in marketing, and in advertising, people would used to try and do global advertising, one message for everywhere in the world. Messages and symbols mean different things in different places. You can't have one global perspective, because everywhere you go, you have to change and adapt. And so I think the biggest thing about a global perspective is being adaptable, and having the ability to change. But let me shut up for a minute.
No, thank you.
Yeah, and if I could just go off what my colleagues have said, international education has been hard hit these last 8 months for sure. In March, before I took this position, we were set to take students every year. Lone Star takes about 70, 80 honor students on an international capstone trip with a couple of options. They were going to China and Spain. I was taking students to DC, which I actually did because that was early March. But then when we got back, everything was shut down, including about 7 programs at Lone Star that were set to run this past summer. But what I've been really, both in my role of working with Lone Star and also working with a lot of other community colleges, what I've been very impressed to see is how quickly schools are pivoting to offer those students international experiences this year in a virtual setting. And we know that it's not the same, and it certainly is no replacement, but what we've discovered is how those experiences are these silver linings that we'll use later when travel returns and we get back to study abroad. We'll be able to have a larger capacity to offer all of our students an international experience. And let me give you an example. Virtual exchange, and what I mean by that is classroom to student kind of interactions and collaborations in a classroom and in a cross-border type of way. So students at Lone Star or HCC or St. Thomas or U of H downtown connecting with students in a classroom in another college, right? And we have seen just an explosion of virtual exchange trainings, opportunities, collaborations. Right now, Lone Star is collaborating with SENA, the Workforce Training Centers in Columbia, to build virtual exchange into their classrooms for the spring. We have seen also that's happening with some of the Lone Star's other partners abroad. And so when we're returning to travel, when this pandemic is all behind us, we will return to travel because we know that nothing beats having students see things on the ground and experiencing those cultures. But, and we're finding with new research about virtual exchange that they get some of those same cultural competency skills through virtual exchange programs that you see out of in-person study abroad. So if we're really looking at our overall goal, which is to give students the skills we know that employers are asking for, global learning, cultural competency skills, lots of new research coming out on those skills and how they're embedded in study abroad and virtual exchange. And employers are wanting and demanding those skills. If we look at that goal, we know that combined with study abroad and these wonderful programs that are Lone Star and HCC and U of H downtown and St. Thomas are offering, we have this expanded capacity to offer students that can't travel. And we know that most students can't travel. We have wonderful scholarships, just like many of my colleagues, but even with that, we know that a lot of students won't be able to travel. So I'm excited about, when we're past the worst of it, what this will look like for international education once this is all over. And so I'm excited about that and what Lone Star is doing in that virtual exchange kind of setting.
Thank you. And so Steph on this, and that was actually one of the next questions, was assuming the pandemic continues to persist, how have your individual organizations started to develop a plan to create foreign environments at your respective colleges? So examples, maybe Zoom workshops connecting students from different countries. Does anyone have something like that? Or how are you still, I know Dr. Gungler, you said that how Houston is an international city, how you can still explore. So is there anything set up at your schools to kind of continue those environments?
Well, I think we're still in development stages at a lot of our schools because this has been a year where we, just running really fast just to stay in the same place. I mean, we've had to all pivot to go to online teaching and online interaction across the board. I have about 300 people working for me that I never see now. And it's, so we're working hard just to keep delivering now. And I'm working with my international oriented courses to try and make some arrangements to have speakers from the different international speakers come and talk to them about. But right now we have to internationalize as much as we can. I think some of the things we possibly could do is bring in guest lecturers from the other countries that we're doing in-depth studies for. The way we usually do our international visits is we'll have a semester-long course on business in China, for instance, and then we'll take part of that course will be at the end taking 2 weeks and going to China. And so we need to internationalize the whole course rather than just study for a while, but we need to bring in speakers. And I think a lot of us have contacts in other countries, and we can start exploiting those to bring in speakers from these places.
So if I may jump in, I actually want to echo what Dr. Gangler and Stephanie was saying. So we have started the virtual study abroad. I mean, by virtual, I mean our students have opportunity to take courses from school in Argentina, school in Brazil, and school across the world under the International Catholic Universities consortiations. So that's one type of way that we're exposing students into a different environment, because those courses will be taught basically in a different language. But at the same time, I think, even though people, we are, not suddenly complaining, but we are actually getting bothered by the problem caused by the pandemic. However, because now everything's going online, going virtual, this certainly also creates an opportunity for us to bring the speakers outside the state, because in the past, flight arrangement, logistic arrangement, sometimes it's just hard to match up the time, match up the moment to invite a foreign speaker. But because of the pandemic and because our familiarity with this online delivery technology, now it becomes much easier to actually host a conference, host a guest speaker, by inviting a foreign speaker. In the past, this is a big, one of the things that we want to accomplish, but oftentimes difficult. And the center actually hosts a couple of events where our speakers are located in Taiwan, in Japan, or even, or in Europe. The point being is, I have seen, not just me, but I think all of you will agree with me that I have also seen the opportunity that this pandemic brought up for our students to have actually more international exposures. Not in a conventional way, of course, but certainly we are also, by doing so, we do bring a diverse perspective to our student body.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I'll just add on to what everyone else has said. Especially Dr. Gangler, hey, we're just trying as hard as we can to keep up with the situation that we've been presented with. We had so many of our faculty who had never taught an online course, and all of a sudden you're thrown into it. So the upscaling of skills and new knowledge, and finally people have figured out how to do wonderful conferences on these different on Zoom and on WebEx and other protocols. So we're very fortunate here in Houston that we have such an international community and such a fabulous group of students who are already here. So oftentimes our own students are some of our best resources. Like we've had pretty close ties with a school in Vietnam, but the Vietnamese students that's our largest student group of any of our many, I don't know, 6,000 or 7,000 international students that travel, that, study with us yearly. So even just using some of our own students as resources, I think we to share more about culture and place and pictures and things like that. I think that there's a lot that we can do, even if we will not be able to travel, even for another year. I mean, it's totally, nobody at HCC can travel, including faculty, presidents, nobody can travel. And students they were the first one, our chancellor said, I cannot send a student abroad. I absolutely will not. And I don't expect him to lift that. That'll be the last thing lifted. We do have a relationship too with a school in Puebla, Mexico, UDLAP, and they've wanted very much to try to have some kind of closer relationship with us. And we were talking about student exchanges, some faculty exchanges. So it's possible that we may be at some point be trying to do some things with schools closer to us. I'll just put it that way.
And yeah, I'll just reiterate what my colleagues have said about the state of things now. And this is what I'm hearing from community colleges all over the country that are members, is that travel isn't likely to return. We're looking at a loss, obviously, last summer, but possibly even 2021. It's just not looking very likely for a lot of schools, given the lead time that you have to develop those.
Right.
But in the coming year, there are so many opportunities for students to do programs. And I'm sure that there might be some programs at your schools too, that the Model UN program, which Lone Star runs every year, they are virtual this year. There's a program called Irex Global Sustainability Challenge that comes out of the Stevens Initiative, which is a government-funded program for the Middle East region. And they run, Lone Star is running, it's sort of like a Model UN program where you have a team from the local college. They're running, their program has always been virtual. It connects students in the US with students in the countries in the Middle East and North Africa region for global learning. So that's always been virtual. So they've got that really down to science. I mentioned the virtual exchange. There are virtual study abroads out there, and I think that the better ones there are actually virtual kind of internships that combine both the experience abroad with some sort of internship learning experience. And there's lots of providers out there that have pivoted to virtual internships or virtual study abroads. Even Gilman, the scholarship that many students can get to study abroad from the US government, that is actually allowing virtual programs for the coming year. So everyone is really being very mindful of where we're at and being as flexible as possible with scholarships that apply to study abroad, and with trying to take advantage or pivot their programs to virtual. And so I think for the coming year, that's what we need to expect. But again, I think there's a silver lining that when we come out of this, we will know how to do virtual stuff better. Right. And it will improve, and we'll have an added capacity.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree that even for nonprofits, just everyone all around, having to pivot during this time, since the World Affairs Council is membership based, and we're definitely face-to-face interactions, and so that's how we've had to transition to having webinars or even our summits and our workshops, things that would be in person, to have and offer them online, which has been a task within itself. However, I think it's given us a lot more skills than we thought we would gain in a very short time. And so the next question was submitted by a member. who asked on the value, benefits, and importance that other nations put on their students studying abroad, with many of them studying in the U.S. How do we make both students and the various stakeholders involved in higher education realize and support the benefits of studying abroad? Because we know not every student will do it, or not everyone sees the same value in studying abroad in other countries. So how do we make both students and stakeholders involved?
Alicia,
Alicia,
I can just jump in and say that at HCC, one of the reasons our students literally cannot study abroad is that they're also working. You know, they're going to school and they're working, and except for like a 10-day trip that they plan for in advance, it's very difficult to think that we could send anyone abroad who would be willing to give up all those things. You know, many community colleges students just have lots of other responsibilities that they cannot give up simply to go abroad. So I mean, I hate to say it, and I'm sorry for interrupting you, Dr. Ye, but just to say that this doesn't seem a possibility for students that attend HCC.
so actually, just in response to your comment, what we're trying to do here is we always try to schedule the study abroad trips during the break time. So we're talking about Christmas break, spring break, where student, I think a significant number of our student body are also doing either part-time job or something actually have full-time job. So, I mean, I have advised students where they say they couldn't really do study abroad because of time commitment. And to me, I mean, so we will find one that you can actually go. Each year we, of course, not this year, but each year we're trying to provide at least 10 to 15 different study abroad trips for students to choose. And this is not just discipline, discipline specific, where only our major can go with this study abroad trip. Actually, we welcome every discipline, every major to take those study abroad trips. At the same time, I think the other potential problem the student may encounter is the financial cost of a study abroad. Oftentimes depends on which country you go, but sometimes the cost could be extremely high. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to find potential support. So currently our study abroad has its own endowment, and the endowment generates scholarship for students to cover their study abroad costs. At the same time, each individual faculty who's serving as chaperone of the study abroad trip, we strongly encourage them to, find different resources, and maybe we can get even just a couple $100 of cost reduction that will incentivize our students to go. Oftentimes, it's time and money. I mean, and from speaking from institutional perspective, if you can minimize the burdens on both sides, then we certainly see that we have enjoyed a very successful study abroad programs for the past.
And, in terms of money affording it, it is difficult to get students in Houston to give up their ties to go somewhere else. But as far as money, sometimes I found that several schools both in China and Taiwan are very appreciative of native English speakers to go there, and will subsidize their tuition by allowing them to help tutor in English and things of that nature sometimes too. And I have even one school that was going to have them teaching classes if they were graduate students. They could teach undergraduate classes and live there for free. And so there are opportunities. It's just, I think it's more the willingness of students, and we need to instill that in them, that willingness and desire to go live abroad. Part of the thing with Cheryl's students and ours is that they grew up in Houston, they live in Houston, they stayed at home to go to college because they want to be in Houston, and they don't want to. If they wanted to go somewhere else, they would have gone to college somewhere else. And so that's kind of the self-selection problem we have with our students not wanting to study abroad. But I think, we should keep working at it. And I'll have to talk to Yao Yun about some of the schools in Taiwan that I know and see if we can share partnerships. But
To echo Dr. Gengler's idea, I currently have two former students who's actually living in Taiwan, teaching English. And it's all start from one study abroad trip to Taiwan. Before that, they have a minimum level of knowledge about what Taiwan is, but the 2 weeks changed their mindset. And they're both thinking about living in Taiwan for the rest of their life. This is how much a study abroad can change your perspective.
Oh, sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. If I can just add to that, reiterating what something Dr. Peters had said about our students, and I think probably St. Thomas and U of H downtown have the same issue, is that our students need to take shorter trips. They're not the students who are necessarily going to take a whole semester or even a year abroad. Shorter trips, and the cost needs to be, there's kind of this golden like $2,000 or under, like $5,000, $6,000 is just too much. So I think that developing shorter lead programs, which all of Lone Star's programs are about 2 to 3 weeks, so which fits nicely for students who work, they can kind of manage that, but also funding. So right now, I know it's kind of a bad time to advocate for study abroad because it seems like this luxury thing that students don't need. And certainly we get that in the perspective of what's happening to higher ed financially. But I think there's a lot of advocacy tools out there and information out there that show how study abroad actually helps colleges meet retention, higher GPAs, graduation rates, and it teaches them those global skills that employers want. So tons of information for stakeholders to know that they may not know, that, hey, study abroad is not just a luxury thing, it's actually helping you meet your metrics for your institution. As well, if you care to visit our website, ccidinc.org, we have an advocacy center, and right now we've been busy all summer long with advocacy for international students because of all the things that they were being, all the things that were happening this summer. But right now we have the idea
don't stop there.
Introduced in 2019. that is going to help hopefully fund students for more students to go on study abroad trips. And if you go there, you can use it and you can send messages to your representatives and to Congress saying, hey, in the middle of the pandemic, I know it's a long shot, but if we can sneak some money into the next stimulus bill to help build international education, that would really be a great accomplishment and help us do what we do.
Thank you, Stephanie. So just to keep up with time, I think we have about 4 minutes left. There's a few more questions. I'm going to only ask 2 of the questions that have been submitted. So maybe if 2 people can decide which to answer one of the questions. So the first one was given by Laura. She's a high school teacher. She says, how can colleges and universities help high schools engage in these kind of exchanges? I know before, Kelly, you were saying how setting up the Zoom where the community colleges are having these Zoom networks. Are there any things where students are also connecting with maybe high schoolers in like more of a mentorship role or things like that?
Our program actually run diplomacy summer camp currently with Harmony High School, and we're trying to use that to serve as a bridge of international outreach, international frontier with a high school student. But of course, in terms of speaking of something that's more generalized, something that's more broader, I think what we can try to do, of course, I don't think it hasn't been really done across any of our campuses, but since we're going online, since everything's virtual, we should be able to provide some opportunity where each of our department or our school hosts this online conference, online virtual lectures, inviting speakers outside the country. you know, sometimes I mean, this is actually a public event. We're not limiting ourselves just to our own student or to our own community. And if we can bring up a kind of a network in between universities and high schools teacher, where the high school teacher can actually share this Zoom meeting information with their students, then this would, I believe, significantly enhance the exposures to this international, educations for high school students. So that's something that on the top of my head. Of course, I don't think it has been done yet. I mean, in the past, I think the connection between high school and university is more like one-on-one. I get invitation to talk to a different high school, but it's like they just found me off on the web, but we didn't really know each other beforehand. However, whether we can create a certain type of consortiums connecting all of us together, given the very fact that we're all in Houston area, I think that's something that maybe we can all work on. Thanks.
Can I add that if the person who asked the question, if you go on to the Stevens Initiative, just Google Stevens Initiative, their virtual exchange programs, granted that it's all focused in the Middle East, North Africa region, but most of their programs that they have running are open to, because the qualification is young people, and that includes, high school, middle school kids. So they have some programs that run specifically for high school students. So if you look at that website, it's a treasure trove of all sorts of information on virtual exchange, but they also have information about programs that high school students can also get involved in.
Okay. So I just wanted to take the time to thank each and every one of you for joining on this panel discussion about international education, ways that each of your universities are kind of taking the charge of this affordable international education for your specific students. And so thank you again, Dr. Gingler, Dr. Ye, Dr. Peters, and Dr. Kelly for joining us at the World Affairs Council. And again, we appreciate all that you're doing in your communities and how each and every one of you have pivoted during these times. So we thank you and appreciate you. And again, if anyone wants to get in contact with them, all of their bios is in the information that we emailed to all of the registrants and attendees. So thank you, and I'm gonna continue on, but all of you are free to go at this moment.